All right, everyone. Hello. Welcome to James Bond Bitcoin Live. And in this episode, I have a guest that was a viewer as well. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Chris, or also known as Mr. Coin Market Cap A1 Baller. So say hello and introduce yourself, please.
How's it going, everybody? You can just call me Chris. That's fine.
All right, Chris, and of course, our other guest, also a YouTuber, Anthony. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Anthony. I run the AltcoinXP YouTube channel. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you for having me.
not a problem. Welcome, guest. Thank you for being on the show. So let me start off with Anthony because originally I wanted you to be on the show because I wanted to talk about the Ethereum and how you did a recent video on how to calculate gas costs, and I did a recent video on that as well by watching your video and a lot of other people's videos and also doing research because it's still pretty darn confusing on how to figure that out.
Is that the
Could you?
video with Koinami on your phone that you're talking about?
Yeah, I did a recent video on the Ethereum, how to set the gas cost or gas price on your Koinami for the lowest fee possible. And so I came up with a number that was, let me see, 5.5 Wee was the number I came up with the lowest gas price. And I did some research and I found some documents on the internet that in Frontier, apparently by default, the lowest gas fee possible was 0.05 to E12 or something like that, which came out to be like 10 digits, 5,000 or something. But if you reverse it, it basically came out to zero point 0.5 Wee. And so that was the lowest gas price, and I did it, and it took about maybe an hour or 2 hour, but it was pretty confusing. And I wanted you to explain in your words, like how would you come up with a gas price, or how does that work with the gas limit? Because I think in your video you did some explanation on why the gas limits are different.
So I was saying before that I made my video 2 months ago, and I don't really, I kind of research things on the fly and then make a video and forget about it. But the way that gas works is that with smart contracts, there's different, not computations, but different, I don't know the right word, like there's different opcodes. So different operations can be done in Ethereum in a smart contract, and not all of those operations are equal. So some operations use more computer resources or more time than other operations. So because of this, all of these operations are given a gas cost. And so yeah, each operation costs a different amount of gas. So when you make a transaction, if you're trying to figure out the minimum amount of gas that you want to spend, because you want to spend your transaction the cheapest way possible, I'm not exactly sure how to figure that out because it depends, I guess. I don't know if Ethereum uses inputs and outputs like Bitcoin and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't know. I just use whatever default is, and I know that's not what you
Okay.
want to hear, but I use whatever the default is, like 2100 gas, and your gas is refunded to you. Whatever is not used is refunded to you. So I don't really think it matters
Right. Well,
what you set it as.
just on the, I'm using Coinami where you can set the transaction fee, or in this case with Ethereum or Ethereum Classic, it would be gas price.
So
Um,
yeah, I don't think that's a transaction fee. That's the gas price. So the amount of ether you're spending per 1 unit of gas.
right, and you're right. It seems to me because Brian McLaughlin sent me um, some ether to experiment with, And when I did the ether scan on that transaction, it's the gas limit is like 21,001, but the gas that was actually used was 21,000. And so when I looked at that, I figured, well, just to do a transfer from one wallet to another wallet, this must be a contract. This is not really a quote unquote, you're not moving your coins per se. You're writing up a contract to move one coin from one wallet to another wallet. And supposedly the Ethereum virtual machine computing power or whatever, it costs 21,000 gas. And so I looked at what he did, and he put 5 Wii on it. And so he paid like 0.00105 ether, which is about, I think, 2 cents. It came out to be 2 cents. But I wanted to figure out what the lowest gas price I could put in there before it drops. And so I did some research, and it turns out that
transaction drops.
I'm sorry, before the transaction drops, yeah, or before it gets not accepted at all.
Yeah.
Because apparently it needs gas. If you put 0 transaction fee or transaction gas in there, the miners would have to pay out of their own pockets to run the quote unquote computation. So that's what I understand from Ethereum. So it's really different. But I found that the 0.0 or 0.5, so half a Wii, is the minimum by default, is what I understand. And so I tried it, and half a Wii is like 9 zeros and a 5, so 10 digits to the right side of the decimal point. And so I ended up paying 0.002 cents. So it was literally a fraction of a penny just to do a transfer. So that's just for transferring. But what I'm wondering is, and this is what I wanted to ask.
How long did that transaction take to go through?
It took about, I would say, 2 hours. Like I watched it for like 5 minutes, and I said, okay, well, forget it. I'm just going to wait. And when I came back, 3 hours or 4 hours passed by, and then showed it's been confirmed an hour ago.
So the issue that I have with you using Konami for this is, I've never used it before, but I'm not sure if they have a minimum gas price that they set themselves in the wallet, just like how in Bitcoin, some wallets set the minimum fee for you.
Yeah, they do. They do. I think it was, I could take a quick look at it right now. It was higher than that. Let me take a quick look at it. Unless Brian, do you know offhand? Not Brian. Do you know offhand?
The lowest amount for Ether?
Or the default?
The lowest I'm asking about, if they have a limit to how low you can put it.
I put it at 0, but I put it at 0, but it didn't work. No, so
yeah, the Konami lets you set your fee, and you could set them to 0.
But see, that's the thing. The problem with Konami is it doesn't say that's not good enough. It just lets you set it, and then you'll think it's good, and then you just go about your day, and you're like, hey, my transfer never went through. So
okay, they have a default setting of 20 Wii. Is what their default setting is. So that should work. But what my calculations came up as 0.5 Wii. So you can, it's literally fractions of a penny. You just have to wait. So, but what I wanted to ask you, Anthony, was how do you figure out the gas limit on these different contracts? Because if they're all different, that would affect the pricing, of course. I guess it wouldn't matter if you're just interested in just running the contract and just doing it, But recently I was watching the World Crypto Network, and they had this artist, Roby's World, and he's using these curio cards, which you can buy and trade using the Ethereum blockchain. It's basically an ICO scenario. And I asked what the gas limit was on that. Thomas Sun had no idea. He's not into Ethereum. But Roby said 57,000 was the gas limit. So So where do you go and find out about these gas limits? Because in a recent ICO, somebody sent like $6,000 in fees to get into an ICO. I guess they didn't realize how to figure that. I guess when they put in their gas price, they thought they were paying Ethereum, and they were like, probably, I'll pay 5 Ethereum just to get in, and ended up paying 6,000, Ethereum just to do that transaction.
So I think the default gas limit for a transaction is set to 2,100 or 21,000, because I think that's about what a transaction would cost. So that's why it's set to that.
Well, that's just the gas limit
for a transaction. Yeah, that's your like you were saying, how it's a smart contract that's transferring your Ethereum to another Ethereum address. So that 21,000 is the gas limit that that contract can use. So it will not use any more than 21,000 gas.
Right. Well, that's just a transfer. But what about these ICO tokens that supposedly do other stuff? Like, because people can totally be misled into thinking like they're paying like 2 pennies or 2 cents, and then they're running these ICO tokens, which run on Ethereum, but they may actually do more stuff, right? I mean, some of these ICO tokens are programmed.
Well, the ICO contract is paying the gas, not the user. The gas is inside the ICO contract.
Right. But unless you actually put a fee in there.
When you send a transaction to an ICO contract, you're just spending the gas to get it into that contract. Then once you're inside of that ICO contract, they're all internal transactions using gas that's already inside of that contract that was put there by the creator.
Okay. But eventually, in order to run this contract, either you have to pay or the creator or the contract has to pay. And
yeah,
it seems like that the user has to pay for everything.
So I think what you're getting at is, how do you figure out how much gas to put inside of your contract? So say if you create a smart contract or an ICO, how do you know what gas limit to set for it?
Well, it's already set by the contract. And what I'm trying to ask is, how do you find out the gas limit? Because I think there's a lot of people who are using these contracts and don't realize they're going to be paying a lot in Ethereum fee after it calculates.
They're not, though. All they're doing is sending their Ethereum into the contract. So they're paying just that 21,000 gas or whatever just to get their Ethereum into the contract. That's my understanding of it, is that you're only sending your Ethereum into that smart contract.
And the gas is burned up, right? It's not a fee.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a fee. I think it's a fee from what I'm looking at and how I researched it. And this is why when I made my video, I think the Ethereum network is really a way to tax the users and charging the users. It's literally a pay to play system. Like you got to pay for everything. To breathe in that network, you got to pay. To blink.
Well, how is that different from Bitcoin? You have to pay a fee for every Bitcoin transaction.
Well, I believe, I haven't had a chance yet. It would take a while. The network is not congested, but I've done 0 transactions on a 0 transaction fee on Dash, Doge, and Litecoin. They've all gone through. They take a while. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin I have not, but I believe you can. It'll just take longer.
No, you can't. You used to be able to, and then now there's a mandatory minimum fee that was set like a year ago.
Well, okay. Do you know what it was, or you know what it is?
It's like 0.00001 Bitcoin or something like real small like that.
Well, I'm looking at the let me see here. What is it? It's called Bitcoin fees.21co.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
It shows the fees that you pay for the transaction, and there are
recommended fee to get your transaction included.
Yeah, and there's like, let me see, 64. Okay, hold on. I'm just refreshing it. Last I see, there was 64 transactions that went through or is being submitted for 0 fee. So it's possible. It's just that nobody wants to wait 3 days.
I'm opening up my the Bitcoin Core wallet because I know it's in there. That'll show the minimum fee. But
Okay.
no, it shows that there's. I'm looking at also at bitcoinfees.21.co, and it shows that there's 0 transactions for 0 fee.
Oh, there's
James,
0 right now.
James,
But there's 64 in the queue. Is that what it's saying? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
no, I just wanted to say you're trying to get people's hopes up. That's all you're trying to do.
Oh, well, I haven't tested it yet. That's the thing.
So these 64, I don't know if I'm reading this right or not, but
No. Wait a minute. It says, okay, you're saying 0 number of transactions in the mempool 0 in the last 336 hours. That's a 0 that you're seeing above the 64 number of transactions in the last 24 hours. That's 64.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if they're using like the actual Bitcoin software to do that.
Okay. All right. I think you can. I haven't tested it because the mempool is empty, and I think this whole thing with the scaling debate is also the reason that a lot of people may not think that you can do a 0 transaction fee on the Bitcoin network. It may take 3 days. Again, I haven't tried it. I will soon. That might be my last Coinami video.
Why exactly does this matter? To send it with no fee.
Well, that's just my own experiment because it's kind of weird. Everyone's talking about the scaling debate, and here I am. I'm sending, Dash, Doge, Litecoin with 0 fees, and they're going through, right? And if they're going through, especially Dash and Doge, they went through within a couple minutes. Litecoin takes about 24 hours. I think the miners automatically do that. They bundle all the transactions that have 0 fees, and then in 24 hours later, they put them into a block.
Well, no, because there's a block size limit, so they're not going to fit a whole day's worth inside the block limit.
Okay, well, whatever they have that has 0 fees, they're not transacting on them. They're just going to put them in the mempool and then eventually put them in, because I've actually done it, made a video, and I show the transaction as well. So it tells me that these networks have practically no use. People aren't using them to transfer their coins and doing all that. They're not busy.
Yeah, they're not using them as much as Bitcoin is being used.
Right. Well, I think Bitcoin's not really being used all that much either. And I suspect that this has all been a ploy of some kind, or whatever reason, to disrupt, I guess, the community of this whole block size debate. So
it seems like hostile takeovers. That's all it seems like, because I've had people say it takes them a long time to transfer their Bitcoin. I've never had any transaction problems with Bitcoin. Like ever.
Well, as long as you pay the fee, right? Like the recommended fee, it goes in like 10, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah. I buy games off Steam with Bitcoin all the time, and the transaction goes through instantaneously. Well,
yeah,
it's fast anyway, So I don't understand the whole Bitcoin is slow. So it's like you said, it seems like a ploy, and it seems like nefarious actors in the Bitcoin community that are just trying to gain control. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was an attempt on that. I mean, there's Anthony, what have you heard about the scaling debate or 2x SegWit 2x?
I can tell you in my personal experience that I've sent as much as 1.5 Bitcoins the other day. And I was trying to look up the fee, but the way that I do it, I don't have access to the old addresses. But I've spent Bitcoins before where I did pay $10 fee to get it confirmed within an hour, and that was a couple months ago. So I know for a fact that the whole fee thing isn't just made up and fake.
Yeah, I agree, because people were spamming the network. The suspicion is that miners who miners were spamming the network to make it seem like the blocks were full, and in reality it was nothing but spam, and they were driving up the fees. And since they're the miners, the miners are driving up the fees. They collect the fees, so it really didn't cost them anything to spam the network. But you're right, it did. There was a moment in time where there was a huge backlog, like 160 transactions in the mempool. But if you look at it now, there's barely any to keep up. If you go to block trades,
right now there's
info.
20 million bytes. The mempool is 20 million bytes, so 21 million bytes.
Well, how many transactions are there?
I'm not sure. It only goes by size.
Okay. So I've been looking at the block the blockchain on block. I think it's blocktrades.info, I think, or something like that. And they have a graphical visual that I can see, and you can see how much is in the mempool, and who's mining full blocks, and who's mining partial blocks, and who's mining empty blocks. And what I've noticed is the Chinese miners seem to mine the empty blocks or the partial blocks, and everybody else is mining full blocks. And so I found that very, very unusual. Anyways, the reason I'm doing it is experiment and to save people money, because you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of fee to transfer your coins. And I know there's a lot of people who Genesis mine and do other stuff, get micropayments on faucets.
If you have all of your currency in Dash, then you wouldn't have to pay the high Bitcoin fees.
Well, you won't have to pay any fees.
Yeah, but that's if you have your currency in Dash. Not everyone has that, and if you have your currency in Bitcoin, then you'll have to pay the conversion fees to get it into Dash, just so you can pay a low fee to spend on Dash. So you're already spending the Bitcoin fee to convert it into Dash.
Right. It's my suspicion that, now with the mempool so low and the spamming has stopped, because it seems like we're coming upon an agreement with the SegWit 2x that's been activated, whether they'll go with it or not. Looks like everything's died down all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I still believe you can still send your Bitcoin with a 0 transaction fee, and it will go through. It won't be 10 minutes.
So in the
maybe 24 hours.
In the Bitcoin Core wallet, it's 0.00001 Bitcoin per kilobyte. So again, it's another confusing conversion to make, but that's the minimum, that's the minimum fee. That
was that 100 satoshis? Is that what it is? Okay.
4 zeros and a 1.
Okay, that's about 100 satoshis, or is that 1,000 satoshis? No, it's got to be 100. So, but I'll do it eventually. As soon as I get some Bitcoins, I'll try to do a 0 transaction fee on it. So it's just a test.
Also, I want to let you know that the fee isn't the only thing or when you send a transaction, there are other variables that affect the fee. So if you have one Bitcoin address with like 20 inputs, then of like smaller Bitcoins, so like a bunch of Satoshis, like 20 Satoshis from different addresses in there, that's going to take longer to get confirmed than if you just have one input with one Satoshi in it. And another thing that affects the fee with Bitcoin is how long that you've held on to those Bitcoins. So a person who has had their Bitcoins in that address for 1 year is going to get their transaction put in the blockchain faster than someone who has had their Bitcoins in that address for 1 day.
Okay, yes. The amount of transactions it takes it fills the block up a certain kilobyte. So yeah, it determines on that, and how many inputs and outputs. You're correct. Did you want to say something, Chris?
Yeah, just don't trade your Bitcoin. Just hold it. You don't have to worry about fees.
Right. Let me get on to you, Chris. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, just to let the audience know.
I was in communications with United States Army. I got stationed in Germany. I got out the Army, but I still do contracting work for them, and I'm just a regular guy. But I got into Bitcoin probably about the end of March, and I've been hooked ever since. It's an awesome space to be in.
So what do you do with your Bitcoins?
I don't do anything with my Bitcoins. I hold them. I use a ledger, and I sometimes use Bitcoins to buy games off of Steam because you can do that. But that's the only thing I've ever actually spent Bitcoin on. There's not really much to tell about me. I'm really just a regular guy, family guy, but I dig your show. I dig your style. And I live out in Germany, and there's nobody to talk crypto with. So,
Right on, right on. If whatever you want to talk about, I mean, go ahead and bring it up. We'll all talk about it. I have Anthony here. It seems like he's definitely into crypto. I know Anthony, has done some mining, and you also do some mining too. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, as soon as I got into Bitcoin, I started looking into mining, and I did some research on how to build a rig, and I have a 6 GPU mining rig sitting in the basement, mining a coin called Expanse. But I'm just going to hold it until it goes up in price and flip it for Bitcoin.
Right, that's the best way to do it. I don't know if you can ever can. I mean, because well, I guess you can, because some of these coins, they move pretty fast. I do have to admit that. A lot of people get into altcoins because they see, I guess, potential for growth, and there is potential for growth. But my argument against that is you can't scale your profits. Like, you could take $1 and maybe turn it into $20. So that'd be like a 200x for the most part. You could probably do that. That's possible. But you can't take $1 million and turn it into $200 million using these altcoins. I think that's not possible, because you're going to become the whale in which everybody's going to take from you when you enter into an exchange environment, because exchanges act like pretty much exchanges are a zero-sum game. Do you trade at all, or do you get into that kind of stuff? Or what are your opinions about these people that get into these lower cap altcoins and they talk about how they made, 1 billion times return, but I don't think they really made that much money?
It seems all like a game to me. Altcoins seem like a redistribution of Bitcoin in a way. I did do trading when I first got in, because when I first got in, I had stars in my eyes. Like, oh my God, this space is amazing, and look at all this money. But I'm also very cautious. So I spent a little bit on Poloniex and Bittrex trying to do some trading and learn how to trade. And from my experience, it's just, as you said, it's a zero-sum game. Like, I wasn't really making any money. At the same time, I did buy my Bitcoin and hold it, and that seemed to be making more money than doing these little day trades. So I said, fuck this trading shit. I'm just going to hold Bitcoin, make a little profit off the mining. And I did buy some lower cap, like you want to call penny stock altcoins. They haven't made shit. And I think everybody's main purpose with these stupid alts is just to get more Bitcoin. Now, if an altcoin, which I don't foresee, but ever taken over Bitcoin spot, then everybody would want that fucking coin. So,
well, let me clue you in, Chris. A lot of people are not doing nothing more than pump and dumps. So basically, people are buying into altcoins, and they're basically it's a boiler room pump and dump. Like, there's a small group of people who buy altcoins, and once they bought the amount that they want, like 1 million of these, very like fractions of a penny altcoins, which is equates to maybe half a Bitcoin or whatever, they go out and make a video, and they talk about it, right? They talk about it, and by the time it gets to you or anybody else, they're looking for you to come in so they could dump. And that's basically what's happening. And you're right about the distribution of Bitcoin into altcoin. The whole point of these altcoins is to take your Bitcoin, turn you into a bag holder, and eventually what happens is then you start talking about these altcoins in your video, unknowingly, right? And you get a little cascade effect, and other people, it's like a virus. and basically you caught this virus, and now you're pumping this altcoin, and it becomes like a little frenzy until, and then the people who made a video about it are waiting for you to come in, so you could be the bag holder, so they could get out with their Bitcoin, and it's a really vicious cycle, is what I noticed.
Yeah, it seems like a race for the most Bitcoin. And you clued me in on a phrase that really summed it up for me, and it's the greater fool theory that you brought up. And I was like, yeah, that's true. It's like a game of chicken on all these altcoin trading. It seems like a game of chicken. I'm going to hold out until somebody's willing to pay me a lot more Bitcoin than I put in for them. And yeah, it seems to be just taken from the greater fool. So I don't mess around with that shit.
What's even worse about that whole situation is people are coordinating these pumps. So it's even worse than that. It's not like it's a free market. It's more of a manipulated market in which people get together, and since this is all unregulated, and no one's really watching anybody, nobody knows what anybody's doing. Like you, me, and Anthony could just decide to like pick up any altcoin and say, hey, let's put in 1 Bitcoin each. Let's all make a video about it, and we'll circle jerk it. And there's a good chance that people will buy into it, because that's how a lot of people get into these altcoins is through YouTube or some other social media. I don't know, Anthony. Do you see that at all? I know you're into some altcoins.
I'm not into them anymore, but I used to follow it a long time ago in 2013. So I saw things like Vertcoin and Feathercoin and Aurora Coin. And the way that altcoins started years ago is that the same way how Litecoin forked off of Bitcoin, or not off of the Bitcoin chain, but off of Bitcoin. And the difference between Litecoin is that Litecoin has 2.5-minute blocks instead of Bitcoin's 10-minute blocks. So everything's like either divided by 4 times by 4 with Litecoin. And all it took was that little change, and everyone was like, oh, Bitcoin's never going to work in the real world because 10 minutes block times is never going to work out. Look at Litecoin, it's 2.5 minutes. This is way better. This is going to be the future. And so then it was all these like little incremental changes to the code that would make a new altcoin. Like Dogecoin is like even faster block times than Litecoin, but still exactly the same code and stuff like that. So yeah, and then yeah, so that's how altcoins came about and stuff. And that's how, when I was involved in all that and paying attention to all that, that's how everything started and got people all hyped up.
Well, what coins are you in now? I know you said you mined some Litecoin, but a long time ago, and I don't know when you traded them for Ethereum, but please tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing now with Ethereum.
So right now I just have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dash, and I never even intended to get involved in Dash. I made a video about it, then the Dash community asked me to accept Dash as a donation method. But those are the 3 that I have, and I don't speculate or trade or anything. I just I hold on to those because from the research that I did, they're the most sound and they're not going to fluctuate a lot and stuff like that. So those are the only ones that I'm in. I don't focus on trading. I'm focused on my YouTube channel.
Okay, and you basically hold, and it turns out it's been working out for you, because you had Ethereum when it was relatively cheaper than what is now.
Mm-hmm.
Buy and hold seems to be working out really well. Is that something that people overlook?
Oh, definitely, especially with how crazy like the altcoin space and ICOs and all that, people just throw money everywhere. But that was always my take on it, was to like really research where I put my money into and hold on to it for a long term. Yeah.
All right. And so the other thing I did want to quickly talk about, and I guess you can talk about this, Chris, is what do you think about this 2x I'll talk about 2x, and we'll get into Alpha Bay, because Anthony has been, you kind of been out of the loop about Alpha Bay and what's been going on. But let's talk about SegWit 2x. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
This whole scaling debate has actually made my head hurt. I don't know anything about SegWit 2x, to be honest with you. My whole theory with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin will always be okay. Once there was this talk, the scaling debate, I was like, let me research it. But then you start hearing about BIP 148, BIP 49, SegWit 2x. It's like, you know what? As long as I hold my private keys, I don't plan on ever using my Bitcoin. I plan on holding it till I'm very old and then maybe giving it to my kids. So I really don't care about SegWit 2x for the most part. I don't know if that really helps or answers your question, but Bitcoin
was it important that Bitcoin stays as one Bitcoin, not Bitcoin being split into two? Was that really important to you, whether it split or didn't split?
To a point, yeah. I mean, one Bitcoin, of course, is better, but I also think that if it splits, the market will determine which one is king. And if it splits, like I said, as long as you hold your private keys, you'll get both coins. So in that scenario, like I said, for me, I just hold. So even if it splits, you're going to get both coins. And if you have the mindset to just hold for the long run, who knows, like 5 years from now, both coins could be worth a shitload or they could be worth nothing. So in my eyes, it doesn't really do people any good to worry too much. Just hold your Bitcoin, hold your private keys. But to answer your question, yeah, one Bitcoin would always, of course, it would be better.
Right.
Split. But I mean, this whole splitting of a Bitcoin, I mean, the market will say, you know, fuck that one coin, we don't want it. So
right.
What does it really matter in the long run?
Yeah, I agree. It seemed like a lot of people were posturing for control, but in the end, nobody wanted to split the network, because I think people would have gravitated towards one side of the chain more than the other, and eventually that side of the chain would have died, because you know, the thing about Bitcoin was that it was going to be one chain. There's 21 million, and that it's a very strong network, and the idea that it could split almost seems unfathomable, or almost seem like it goes against everything Bitcoin was created for. So let me get into Anthony. I think we talked about just a little bit, but what's your final thoughts before we get on to Alpha Bay?
So I was under the impression that this SegWit stuff went through this weekend already, and that everything worked out okay. I didn't really follow it that closely, but do you know anything about that? Did it work out or what?
Oh, okay. Well, we're definitely going to get SegWit, right? That was the whole debate all along this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, it also seemed that the Chinese miners or mining manufacturing of Bitmain was using something called ASIC boost to increase its energy efficiency, and SegWit would have been incompatible, so they would have lost that little competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was theorized that that's the reason why they were blocking or delaying this implementation, SegWit. And so, anyway, there's a lot of infighting, a lot of debating, or a lot of fighting.
I saw
eventually they got to. Yes.
I saw on Reddit, like all this stuff was supposed to happen this weekend, or maybe it was next weekend, sometime before August 1st. And I saw on Reddit like a couple days ago that 100% of the nodes were signaling for BIP 148.
Yeah, there's a lot of celebrating going on. I'm not celebrating yet, because what it is basically it's a SegWit. They're going to get SegWit. We're all going to get SegWit on the Bitcoin network. The question is whether everybody wants. Does anybody want to hard fork to a 2 megabyte? Right now it's a 1 megabyte with SegWit. So everyone's going to get SegWit with 1 megabyte until a couple months later. And as far as the August 1st thing, I don't see that as an issue, because if the miners have signaled it, and they're going to run some kind of SegWit client on their miners, I don't see what the point of worrying about August 1st. My more worry is a later date when they want to try to do a hard fork to 2 megabytes. And so there's another issue later down the line here. So that's kind of what's going on.
Basically, we still have the same issues as the last couple years, only now we have SegWit activated, which was kind of a no-brainer to do in the first place.
Yes, exactly, Anthony. That's what's happening, and that's why we got this issue with the hard fork ABC. It's called hard fork ABC. So apparently, even everything goes okay. That's also a third thing that's going on.
Yeah, there's an article on CoinDesk that explained like all these different SegWit versions and whatever. So,
but won't Bitcoin always be going through some of this kind of battles, like for the rest of its existence? You know, like the dust will settle now, but who knows? 5 years from now, there'll be another.
That's the nature of software. It's always got to be upgraded.
You know,
and unfortunately, with Bitcoin and the way things work, is that we need 51% of people to agree in order to upgrade stuff. We don't just have a leader that just says, hey, we need to do this. We have to do this now. Let's do it.
But see, couldn't this be like a test case for future events? Like say the Chinese miners or whatever, they're trying to do their own thing, and then they hard fork, and then the market says, we don't want your fucking coin. Then down the road, everybody's going to go, remember what happened to the Chinese miners when they tried to dicker around with Bitcoin? They screwed themselves, so let's not go down that route. So I kind of foresee Bitcoin as resilient in a way.
I agree. You know what I've noticed since I've been involved, at least just watching it, I've noticed a couple things, and it's really hard to do anything at this point in time because there's so many people involved, and it almost seems like you have to come to a crisis to get everybody to agree on anything. I think before it was very easy because nobody cared. It wasn't worth a lot of money. And there was very few people that actually were involved to the point where they disagreed so much.
It was easier back then, yeah, because there were less people involved, and so there was more unity. A lot more people were on the same page back then with Bitcoin. Everyone had like this libertarian freedom mindset, and let's buy drugs and
what I've also noticed throughout history, things that give things value always. There's always attempts to hijack that, you know, and Bitcoin is no different. So people are going to attempt to hijack it. But Bitcoin, like I said, seems to have this inherent built-in self-resilience to peel off those nefarious actors. But like James said, it takes a crisis, and then the dust will settle, and then hopefully there's smooth sailing for a while. And then
I think it's resiliency is just, I guess, like the majority of the community actually researching and studying what's going on and coming to a good conclusion and sticking to whatever version of Bitcoin or whatever is right in their minds. And a lot of people know that all these like BIP 148 or whatever, like all these SegWit proposals are just people trying to take control and make a name for themselves. So I think that's one of the reasons that some of this stuff doesn't end up making its way through.
Well, the market seems to be confident right now. The price is good. So
yeah, what do you think the price is going to go? I mean, everyone seems to be very, very in a celebrating mood, but I know when I see this and I see overconfidence, I tend to get worried. You know, I'm just that way. When I see everybody happy and celebrating and they're all saying, yeah, we got SegWit, everything's going to be great, we're going to go to 5,000, I get worried because that tells me that this is something's not right. It shouldn't be this easy after all this time.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But, you know, you always got to be cautious in life. You don't want to be premature about celebrating something and it comes back to bite you in the ass. But the price is going to go to what John McAfee said. And then once he eats his dick, the price is going to crash. So,
well, the price has to come short of that.
so
Right?
once John McAfee eats his dick, sell your Bitcoin.
I think what's going to happen with SegWit is so SegWit opens up a lot of possibilities with Bitcoin, with coding and scripting Bitcoin that we've never had before. So I think a lot of developers and people are going to start thinking about those ideas and realizing actually executing new stuff going on with Bitcoin. And then once all that is exhausted and we reach another point of where we can't go on anymore without doing another fork, then we start seeing like a problem again and prices going down and stuff like that.
But Bitcoin seems to have big swings, but it always seems to come back. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about the price.
Yeah, there's a lot more to worry about, especially like you're not relying on Bitcoin for your future or anything, you know.
If you are, then yeah, something's wrong with you.
Well, you don't want to retire with your Bitcoins?
That would be great, you know, but it's that old classic. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And if you're solely relying on Bitcoin for your future.
If I retired on Bitcoin and then like 2 months later, the market crashes and I'm back to work, it's way too volatile to retire on.
So
you know,
go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just gonna say, people get big eyes when they see the news articles and John McAfee saying 500,000 and all this, and then you know it may not be the case. It may just go to zero tomorrow. Nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know. So yeah, I don't know. People should just be a little bit cautious.
Okay, now I want to bring about the subject of AlphaBay. I want to ask Anthony or Chris what they know about it, or what you've heard, or do you know anything about what's going on with that?
So I
I've never
have
heard of
absolutely
AlphaBay.
no idea.
Yeah, I never heard of AlphaBay.
Okay.
I heard about him like an hour ago when we talked before the show.
Okay. Well, you know, the underlying value of Bitcoin, in my opinion, has always been centered around the dark markets for some reason. And AlphaBay is an interesting story because it has there's a good story to it, or mystery to it, ever since Silk Road, and then you had Evolution and all these other dark markets where supposedly you could use your Bitcoin, and apparently they were accepting Ethereum and Monero, and it seems like the underlying value of some of these coins, in particular Bitcoin, has been for dark market use. And I'm wondering, the recent price crash and the recent price going up, is it really related to SegWit, or is it also underlying? There's an underlying thing going on where it's related to the dark markets because they were shuttered. And from my past experience from Silk Road, when it shutters, the price goes down, and it went down during that same time frame. And then after it goes down, people scramble to rebuy their Bitcoins again. And then the price goes back up. And it seems like this happened. I don't know if it's because of SegWit or is it because of these dark markets, because just having SegWit doesn't mean anything from what I understand. It's just market news.
It means more Bitcoin unity, that people agree and stuff. So there's a lot of high spirits and stuff going on with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but would you buy Bitcoin because of that?
Yeah, I mean, who's buying Bitcoin?
You know, SegWit opens up a lot more possibilities for Bitcoin that never existed before.
Chris, did you buy or sell any of your Bitcoins during that time?
No, I bought my Bitcoins back at about the end of March, and I've held on to them ever since, man. I just hold. Like I said, I just hold. But maybe it's a little combination of both. What you're talking about in this dark net and because the dark net, I don't think the majority of people hear about the dark net. That's like the underlying actual use cases for Bitcoin. But I think what the majority of, I would say normal people, but I don't really like that term, but the population at large, what they're hearing about is SegWit. So I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of the two that affect the price.
This one article that I'm looking at about Alphabet, the headline, I don't know. This is businessinsider.com. I don't know anything about them, but the headline is the FBI just took down Alphabet, an online black market for drugs that was 10 times bigger than the Silk Road. And that was July 20th. So a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and apparently the head admin who's running Alphabet was arrested on July 5th, I believe, and he hung himself with a towel in his cell. And people are thinking foul play. I think he really killed himself because he lost. Turns out he got all his Bitcoin, his Ethereum, and his Monero confiscated. So I think he had $8 million worth in Bitcoin. He had his Lamborghinis confiscated. I think he had several properties amounting to $12 million also confiscated. And he's pretty much looking at a life sentence once he reaches the U.S. Because he was just about to be extradited to the U.S.
Yeah, it's got to be tough.
Well,
that's crazy.
Yeah. And so I think he definitely took his life. There's some people that talk about how he might have been killed because he may know other people and those people don't want the truth to come out. But I kind of don't buy that story.
Yeah, it just sounds like a bunch of conspiracy stuff. Just people.
I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, I also heard that Alphabet was run by the Russians, but now that Alphabet's been shuttered and it's just run by this Canadian software person, I wonder how that story fits in because apparently there's a reporter who's been tracking this, and she's going to write a book about Silk Road and had an interview with Chris DeRose, which I watched, and she was pretty sure that the Russians were involved. It's kind of funny.
Dude, the Russians are involved in everything.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just saying that's the headline I hear all the time. Russians did it. Russians did it.
Yeah, that's
Red.
That's what I hear too. Now that Trump's been elected into office, everything is about Russia. And
Red's under the bed.
Yeah, are we going back to those times again? Back to the '80s, where there's a communist behind every red herring?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. But that's why it's hard to take these kind of stories with seriously. It's like, yeah, you guys say the Russians about everything. I don't know, man. But if what you say is true, I probably would have killed myself too, man. Fuck that noise.
Yeah, it's trying to say how it's got to be tough losing all that.
There's another rumor where there was another dark market called Hasana. I believe it was Hasana. And so Alphabet gets shuttered. All the users scramble because does anybody know what's being sold on the darknet? I mean, they say drugs, they say guns, and then they say credit card information. But I think most of the transactions that are done on the darknet market are probably credit card transactions or stolen credit card information.
Mm-hmm.
Because
personal information type of stuff.
Yeah, personal information to make a fake credit card, stolen credit card. And the reason I say that is because it's a lot easier to send stolen credit card information than to send a drug to your door or a gun to your door. That's pretty hard. I'm pretty sure that was done as well. But the amount of transaction I think people were using Bitcoin or Ethereum or Monero was to transact in stolen, information, because they could just receive it right away, and then they would be used all over the world. And I think more of that was going on than any of these other so-called transactions where you have to receive physical goods.
See, I think that back when Silk Road was popular, that the drug dealers would just send their drugs in UPS flat rate boxes, which I thought was crazy. I'm like, how does that happen? But I remember seeing a report. Some reporter bought drugs off of the Silk Road and received it in a flat rate box from USPS.
Fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, that's incredible, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, how is that possible that the United States Post Office, the UPS, right, or the United Parcel Service, or the U.S. Post Office?
United States Postal Service.
So how does that just get through them?
I have no
Because
idea, especially like around like 9/11 time, like people were getting mailed anthrax and all that, you know.
Yeah, it's
So
like the same time with mass surveillance and all this shit. So it's kind of weird.
I tend to think that some of this is the paranoia that's going on in America is um, is is exactly that, paranoia and a fear tactic.
where are you
Because
from, James?
I'm out of Houston.
Oh, so you're in America. Okay.
Yes, I'm in America, and I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the U.S. that we never hear about, and people don't normally talk about. But I also think that there's a lot of stuff that goes outside of the U.S. that brings basically these quote unquote drugs into America, and once it hits America, I think I have this weird theory that the authorities regulate. I mean, and this is going to be a weird way to use the words. They regulate contraband. They regulate it by, well, first of all, seizing the ones they don't want. But then the other flip side is they allow the other ones, the other contraband, to come in that they do want to come in for their own purpose. And now I'm getting a little conspiracy here, but have you ever followed the report for Whitey Bulger?
Now, what's that?
Well, Whitey Bulger was a Boston Mafia, and basically he had free reign to run his operation as long as he gave information for other people to his FBI handler. Have you heard that story, or have you heard that report?
I haven't read the report. No, actually, I have heard of Whitey Bulger though. Now that you mention it, but
Yeah,
no.
he was apparently he was giving information to other people, other mafia leaders, and basically that led to other arrests for other crime organizations. But in return, he was allowed to run free. You know, run his criminal organization as he wanted to, and
Well,
he was handled by the FBI. And when the court case came to when he got finally arrested at 70 years old, that's what he was trying to argue, that he got the green light from law enforcement to do all these things.
well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
Wait, so he was arrested and his excuse was that the FBI told him to do it?
Essentially, yes. The FBI told him to do it, or allowed him to do it. And not only that, he also made a claim that I think it was a district attorney also allowed him to do it because he saved his life by letting him know that there was going to be a hit on him. So he prevented the hit on his life.
So what happened with the case? Did the district attorney stick up for him?
Well, he was dead by the time he was dead, so he never became a witness. But
the district attorney was dead?
But yeah, it happened a long time ago. But his claim was he was given immunity to everything that he did because it was a favor that was returned to him.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, sometimes I have to wonder about these things because there's so much surveillance going on for terrorists, right? There's some reason you can catch a guy that has, you know, plastic explosive in his shoes coming into America, but you can't catch somebody shipping drugs through the United States Postal Service. It seems kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, you don't know all the underlying circumstances because some things slip through the cracks, some things don't. And
I'm sure stuff like, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, is it any surprise that law enforcement uses stool pigeons within organized crime? I mean, is that any big shock to anybody?
No, but recently there's another one with the Fast and Furious with the guns. Another case where they're using somebody to run free with guns into Mexico, and in return that person would snitch on other Mexican cartels, and eventually he got arrested. It almost seems like you make a deal with the devil.
I was just gonna say, deal with the devil. That's what's going on
Yeah.
right there.
And you know, that brings me back to Alexander Kaz. I think it's Kaz. It almost seems like he probably made a deal with the devil at some point. And it might have been during Obama administration, because when Trump came in, apparently Trump wanted these dark markets gone. So when Alphabet came, it was during Obama administration. They allowed him free reign, probably raised some money for some shit that nobody wants to talk about. And then when his time was up, you know, they're like, okay, we need to get this guy. I mean, there seems to be a pattern here where you make a deal with the devil, you live this great life, and they lived a great life, all of them. And then when it comes time to pay your due, you know, you have to go to jail forever or you're dead.
It's a very interesting theory, dude, but without any facts or proof, for me, that's all it is. But it is a very interesting story.
It is. But another thing I want to bring up is how much of this is I have another theory. I don't know if you want to chime in on this, Chris, because you work with international stuff. But I have another theory that that drugs are being procured outside of America by the CIA.
From what I can tell, that is most likely true.
Because I watched another YouTuber. He said he did he served some he did something. He was in Afghanistan, and he literally said, I was out in the poppy fields, and half of it was owned by the U.S. The other half was owned by the Germans.
I don't know.
He was there to patrol the poppy fields.
Well, that part's true. U.S. soldiers have been used to protect the poppy fields. Who owns them? I can't tell you that. And for what reason, I don't know. But I mean, what else do we use poppies for?
Well, obviously, as a nice bouquet, you know, in the middle of your table for decoration. But well, that would be heroin, of course, for opiates. And my point is, there's a lot of stuff that goes on around the world that we don't know about. And to raise money to run these operations all over the world, I mean, they need to do this all under the table. And what better way? And there's been some things that have happened in the past with crack being sold in Los Angeles, for example, the crack cocaine epidemic, that there was instances where the CIA was involved in helping a drug cartel raise money to fight some communist out in South America, and the drugs were being imported into Southern California, where they were made into crack to make more money. So because you only need X amount, and you make tons of crack, and that's how they were raising money to do all that. Now, there's no direct link, like the government is selling crack to, you know, South Central Los Angelinians, but there is some kind of trail. And I have to wonder, watching what happened to Alphabet, I wonder if something like that happened, where they were allowed to do this, and then the next moment, as soon as Trump said, I want that stopped, they're like, okay, and he ends up dead. Alexander Kraz ends up dead. And Alphabet is shuttered. Hasana was a trap for all the other users to go to. And then while they were registering for Hasana, right, the FBI has already captured that site. They're just watching people register. They got their IP addresses, maybe some names, maybe some emails. They're following the fake emails to get to the real email. And they're going, well, icing on the cake, so we look good. Maybe we can bust some of these users.
I don't know, dude. I mean, what I would say is that, yeah, I mean, in the world, there's fucked up shit going on, and people, like you said, make deals with the devils, and it's a, you know, usually these are battles in theory of good versus evil, if you want to put it that way. But I would say that when you have these fucked up situations, they usually come to a head, and they never end good. So I don't know.
Okay. Or, Anthony, you're just listening. I know.
Yeah, I'm
But
just
what
listening.
are
I
your
don't.
thoughts? Yeah, I mean, we talk about anything and everything on this channel.
My thoughts are I don't waste my thoughts on thinking about conspiracies and stuff that I can't prove or anything. So I
Yeah,
just stay
that's it.
out of it.
I'm kind of the same way, but it makes my head spin a little bit because, you know, I am human and the what if factor always creeps in. But you're right, man. Without facts, without evidence, it's hard for me to
Well,
say one way or the
the
other.
thing about this stuff is you'll never get the facts, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This will never be disclosed to the point. But you have to look. I'm just trying to raise up some questions with, because a lot of people also claim that Bitcoin was created by the CIA, and you know, CIA is kind of known for using cryptography to communicate.
I always wondered that too. Like, you know, we don't know who made Bitcoin. So I always, yeah, I like Anthony said, I don't like conspiracy theories, but thoughts do creep into my head. I'm like, what if it's made by the government? What if it's a test case for control and all this shit? But
Yeah, and it got out of hand. Like let's say someone was working on some shit like this. Maybe not for money,
they, they didn't
right?
expect to
But
change the world, you know?
yeah, they didn't expect to change the world. They just that maybe that someone was just upset how shit worked out and said, "Well, let's do this for money." I mean, it works great for communication and messaging, and you know, cryptography is being used. And if you look at the core of what Bitcoin is, it's cryptography. You know,
What
the
about,
way.
I don't mean to interrupt you, James, but what about this? What if the government, and this is a conspiracy theory, I'm just making this shit up, but what if the government did make Bitcoin and they're testing it out? Oh, people love it. It's a blockchain. We can track the transactions. Okay, it worked. Now we're going to ban Bitcoin and make GovCoin, and that's how you're going to get paid your wages, and that's how you're going to get paid in your 401k. And
Well, that's something that I always think about is that there's private versions of Bitcoin and private versions of Ethereum running. Like there's a Bitcoin consortium, which is a bunch of major companies that made their own version of Bitcoin, and they're all working together to make their own like multi-company blockchain. And then the same thing with Ethereum. So I always think about that, like if companies, if all the people get left behind on the public version of all this stuff because all the companies have moved to their private versions that we can interact with. So I don't know how much that relates to what you're saying, but
I have
yeah.
no idea. This space is so new, and we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So it's all speculation, but it's very interesting to
Well,
think about.
I'm willing to speculate on that. I think it's going to fail because it reminds, you know, Bitcoin is compared to the internet, and if you think about it, the internet was kind of like a little, I wouldn't say private government experiment, but it was kind of used in that way, kind of like Tor as well. And now Tor is out of the bag, and look how it's being used. Like once this technology goes into the wild, and other people pick up, the general public pick up on it and start taking it off, it seems like you can never put that genie back into the bottle. So even if they did make like a Gov coin, no one would use it because they know that it would be monitored, even maybe reversed. And the reason why people like Bitcoin is because it's hard to reverse it. It would need a majority, 51% of the miners to reverse that, and I don't think you can get 51% of the miners. And if you do, it would split, and so you would still have a record of a transaction that did happen. And it almost reminds me of like AOL wanted that walled garden, right? And you had first they came up with you had to pay for every minute that you did, because I remember it was unlimited, and then they changed that, and then they made it unlimited, and it was still a walled garden where, you know, you had your own internet space. It was like a little mini World Wide Web, and then you had the real World Wide Web, which seems that it just took off. It just took over, and eventually now when you ask people about AOL, I don't know if anybody still uses AOL.
That shit's a relic, man.
Yeah, yeah, and so being this technology being in the wild and battle tested, and trying to get killed time and time again, and even co-opted and trying to be taken over, it still survives. I don't think we can never let this go.
That was my point about the major companies making their own private blockchains, is that would be the one thing that I could see as being able to compete with public Bitcoin. Because say that all of your car insurance is on a private blockchain, now you're forced to interact with their private blockchains, you know?
But how much could free market dictates come into effect for stuff like that? So like a car insurance says, oh, you can only use this blockchain, and people are like, well, fuck you, I just won't have car insurance.
Oh yeah, I guess people could make their own car insurance blockchains or build their own public insurance on the public Bitcoin blockchain.
And then people will go, oh, well, I guess we better start using Bitcoin because nobody's buying our private blockchain. I'm just saying.
It's something.
I see what you're saying, though, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's a long way down the line. I think it's I think drugs. I do think dark markets are really going to take hold of Bitcoin. Whoa. And it's the underlying value, and that includes Ethereum, Monero, anything that's going to be of value. It's going to be used in the dark markets.
Well, the dark markets, as far as I know, are still centralized. So as far as they're still run off of a single web server or whatever. So once like Ethereum and IPFS and all that stuff comes about, I'm sure we'll see like actual dark markets that we can't take down.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna just talk about that, where you'll basically have a decentralized dark market where there's no one server to take down, and not only that, the new dark markets are gonna be automated. So you as a user, you do whatever you need to do. As the buyer, they participate, and then a contract will run everything and spit out a feed to the owners of these dark markets, and so it's unstoppable by that time. I mean, it will literally be unstoppable as soon as these, and I think we're almost there.
Which is kind of scary, because I don't know. I don't want to see my family like all addicted to drugs and shit, you know? Like, I can't see like a world where everyone has like access to like heroin and meth, and they just all do it like freely and whatever, because that shit's kind of dangerous, you know?
It won't happen that way, though. There's always the opposite side to fight back. Always.
These things have been people on bath salts, they're pretty powerful people. They go crazy.
But how can you stop this? I mean, there won't be anybody to really go after except the users at that point.
It'll never be stopped, but it'll be a constant struggle between like the forces of good and evil, if you want to put it that way.
And that brings me to another question: who's good and who's evil in this situation? Because it tends to be like, obviously you think drug people are evil. They've got. Yeah,
I don't like the terms good and evil. I'm just using that as more of a frame of reference. But yeah, people are not going to just sit back. It's like the mafia and the cops. I mean, they're always there. They're always fighting. The internet and technology just seem to speed up these kind of conflicts, amp them up a bit.
Well, here's another thing. You're talking about a whole organization, a whole industry that feeds their family. I mean, we tend to think of these bad guys as like Scarface. Yeah, Scarface or something, and they're just toting guns and everything. But in reality, these people have a real life, just like you and me. They have families, and a lot of them depend on this source of income, even though they might not be like the top dude. But there's a whole download of people underneath the top guy, and they all have families. And so you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry being disrupted here. I don't see an end to this, and I see with the decentralized markets that I think is going to be coming, it's going to be even easier, and it's going to be more, how can I say, proliferate, I guess. Go ahead, Anthony.
It's going to make it worse.
So are you trying to say that like the current drug dealers that hold guns and all that are going to try to come after, or are you trying to be sympathetic towards them for if a decentralized drug market comes about?
No, what I'm saying is that this will never end. It will evolve to the point where you have to actually not only there's no central server to attack or one guy to hang himself in the jail. You have to go after each and every person that participates in this market. And so it may be a law enforcement's dream because you'll have to ask for funding, and you'll have to make more jails. You'll have to be more surveillancy, right? And so with decentralized, activity like the dark markets, you'll have to have an equal amount of energy and effort in a decentralized law enforcement to match it. Because from what I understand, the recent bust with Alphabet, technology may have been used, but good old fashioned police work and people infiltrating Alphabet, I think would have been the more likely way that they got caught than people pounding on the computers trying to find out where where the server was.
Mhm.
As an aside, didn't you say something about Chris DeRose? Didn't you say he had some kind of information or?
Well, as far as Chris Rose, the only thing I saw from Chris Rose, he talks about the dark markets all the time. I think Brian, he didn't show up today, but he did mention that he's my producer, and he said he set up an interview on Wednesday with Chris DeRose. So I'm looking forward to that episode because I have a lot of questions for him. He does talk about being a heroin addict, his recent breakup with Juntsev, all this stuff. I have a lot of questions because I don't know him personally. I've only seen him through YouTube, but I would like to get to know more about him. And so hopefully Wednesday, I think this coming Wednesday, 8 p.m. On this channel, hopefully he'll come on this show.
Oh, cool.
All right. If anybody in the audience, not too many people today, but that's all right. If anybody has any other questions or anything else, I think that we'll just wrap this up.
Okay. I had one question for you, James.
Okay.
You say you do peer-to-peer, right?
Yes.
Would you mind saying what is your most fucked up interaction? Because sometimes I picture you're like a guy wants to buy Bitcoin, and then you go to meet him, and he doesn't even know how to have a Bitcoin address. He just wanted some Bitcoin because he heard about it. You have any fucked up situations that you can tell us about, or funny situations? Maybe one.
Let me see here. None of my experiences have been really like fucked up. Like I've never encountered any violence or anything really go wrong. What I usually do when people contact me, like most of the people that contact me already know what to do. They either send me an address key beforehand, or they have a wallet, or they have a picture of a QR code.
Do you go through local Bitcoins?
I did in the beginning.
Mhm.
And then after that, I started just working peer-to-peer outside of local Bitcoins. And so what I normally would do if I do encounter, I'll tell you one encounter. Well, I'll tell you how I usually do it. I usually, if it's a new person that contacts me, I'll ask them what their address key is. And if they say what's an address key, I just tell them, okay, go get a wallet first, and then or get an address key, and then usually I'll ask them to text it to me, take a picture of the QR code, and then I'll verify it on the blockchain. So I never really let it get that far, and so he has it, and then
So someone can send you if someone makes a new address, it's not going to show up on the blockchain.
yeah, well, it'll just show with no transaction in it. As far as Bitcoin, like if you took a Bitcoin wallet and you made a new address and you looked up blockchain.info, it'll show up. It just won't have any transaction. But you're right. A lot of other cryptocurrencies, maybe Litecoin, Ethereum, Dash, Doge, they won't show up because there's no transaction. But that's just based on the Block Explorer. But I will tell you the funny story. So I do some trades in Canada for Canadian dollars because I go there every now and then, especially in the summer because it's cooler, and I'm here in Texas, so it gets really hot, really humid in the summer. So to escape that, I go up north, and I go towards the Greater Toronto area. So I use Craigslist or Backpage, and then so I get a reply, and it was from a Backpage, and apparently it was a woman, and she wanted to buy like $25 or $50 worth of Bitcoin, and she wanted to meet me in person. Well, at that time, I was only doing larger transactions in order to meet you face to face. It had to be a large transaction. I'm not going to go to Toronto to do a $50 transaction. And so I told her it had to be like a lot more, you know. Well, she replies, and she offered to suck my dick. All right, she offered to pay me $50 and also suck my dick to trade Bitcoin. And so, unfortunately, I still refuse to go. I refuse to go, you know. But what I did do is I gave her $5 in Bitcoin, and I said here because she told me she needed it to run an ad on Backpage. And so she did contact me off and on. I didn't really believe her at all because you know you get a lot of guys who pretend to be women to do these romance scams. And so I did ask her to send a picture. She sent me pictures from her Backpage. So I was thinking, yeah, this is a scam because you could just, you know, make pictures or get pictures somewhere else, load them up onto Backpage, and you know you could say that's you. Well, when she contacted me one more time, and I was like, "Do you have any other pictures, like you holding a fork or something that wasn't off her Backpage?" And so she sent me a video, and she was in the video. She was doing three guys in the video, and it was a picture of her. You know, it was the guys who were obviously paid her to have sex was videotaping or videoing it off I think it was their cell phone, like a cheapy cell phone, and it was her. So I know stuff like that does happen, and I never sold her. I did give her Bitcoin to put up on her Backpage, but after that, I never heard from her again. So that's my interesting story I've had. Other than that's about it. All the other trades are very boring. I just simply sit down and I meet the person. They give me the money. I tell them I calculate the rate, my rate in which I sell Bitcoin, and I show that to them. And I said, you're going to get X amount of Bitcoin. I only go up to the third digit, because after that it's transaction fees. So I try to mitigate some of the transaction fees, and then I send it to them, and that's it. And after that, I walk away. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. But that's the only. It's very boring.
So
other than every now and then you get scammed. When I first started, a lot of wire reversals. People try to deposit check into my bank account and then reverse them, stuff like that.
Do you wait for a confirmation while you're sitting there with them?
You mean on the Bitcoin blockchain?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them just walk away. They're pretty confident that it'll go through. I've never had one not go through. I never tried to double spend. But I know people who have received Bitcoin and paid for it, and then the next day the transaction was gone because they put in a very low fee during the times that the mempool was very full, and it dropped.
Yeah, you could do that yourself, and especially now that replaced by fee, sometime in the last year that was brought into Bitcoin. You can sit there with the person, send the transaction to them with a really low fee, and then go home to like your computer or whatever and send the transaction back to yourself, because with a higher fee than what you sent to that guy.
You know, I've had people send me replaced by fee, but it's usually people sent to me using a regular fee, and then they sent it again using replaced by fee. But I was worried about that, but I've never had that happen to me.
Oh.
So I guess this wraps up this episode. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the the live stream here. Now, before we leave, Anthony, your link to your channel is in the notes section.
Thank you.
Please tell everybody how they could find out more about you.
You can follow me on, well, you can look me up on YouTube. It's AltcoinXP. I have a YouTube channel. I talk more about like technologies behind different cryptocurrencies and explain some altcoins and stuff like that. And that's basically it. I'm on Twitter and Reddit and whatever with the same name too. I also want to say, since this is the end of the show, thanks for inviting me on and reaching out, James. I had an awesome time being here. And it was great meeting you, Chris, too, and talking with both of you guys.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anthony, and same here. And
likewise.
And Chris, please tell your link to your channel. And you don't make any videos, but you load up a lot, you like a lot, and you subscribe a lot. But tell people where they could find more about you.
They can't. I don't have a social media presence. Just if you want to reach out to me, I guess my YouTube channel, you can direct message me there. But I don't do anything on the internet. I will say this though: if any of your viewers are watching, I'm trying to actually start a crypto meetup here in Germany because there's not that many people into cryptocurrencies in my area. So if anybody's in Germany and wants to get something like that started, just send me a direct message. And other than that, yeah, I appreciate being on the show. Nice meeting you, Anthony. And yeah, once again, thank you.
All right. And thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure finally talking to you and learning more about you. Hopefully we can converse in other ways, you know, and stay in contact. So until next time, everyone, stay tuned. And this concludes this episode. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.